issues of sexuality, communication, just, you know, self-presentation, whether, you know, people who are dating, people who are, you know, in relationships. I worked with all types of people, right? And my focus has always been relationships and sexuality. And I truly believe that the quality of your relationships and how you connect to others is really important to your overall quality of life. So to me, it's just a very integral part. And I work with people on topics of communication and conflict and all of that stuff that comes up within the life of a relationship, and in certain times.
Shula? Are you guys, did you lose her too? Yeah, you can't hear her. Hold on, let me just Hector. So while she'll probably start getting back to us, but just to let you know, so Shula works a lot, both individually and in groups, with, you know, sexuality, with relationships. And I think the vision that she's going to bring to us tonight is so important. You know, it's funny because the webinars the professionals that I normally bring are related to mostly individual health and wellness. But this time I really wanted to focus on relationships because it's an integral part of our health and well-being. Shula, you're back. I'm so sorry. I got knocked off. Where did I get cut off? You were kind of in the middle of presenting yourself and what you we lost you just a couple of minutes before. Oh my goodness. All right. So I have a master's in sexuality and psychology, and I work with individuals and couples and groups on topics of relationships, communication, connection. And, you know, I work with single people, I work with partnered people. And yes, and this has been a very unique time for relationships. And it's been a really interesting time for all of us as people who are in relationships, but also for me as a person who works with people who are in relationship or looking for relationships. And there have been a lot of lessons. And I read somewhere that, you know, somebody wrote something about like hoping that this period of time, this pandemic, the time of COVID, will leave us with, you know, some lessons or, you know, something that we have learned other than to be afraid of one another or you know, trying to manage, you know, this disease. I was saying, Bella, when I was cut off, that, you know, having masters in public health, I'm sure you had the same reaction that I had when at the beginning of this whole situation, where we're like, okay, we're in for something, you know, and it's going to be a wild ride for us globally. So let's see what we can learn, right? So yeah, for sure. Hey, now I'd be really interested to know what your, you know, I know you see people, you know, you do one-on-one sessions and therapy with individuals. What have been the biggest issues? Because you know, I'm sure a lot of us are dealing with very similar issues related to our relationships. And I was just saying, while we lost you, I was saying that, you know, relationships normally is not something that I bring in to these webinars. I only talk about individual well-being, but I think relationships are such a huge part of our day-to-day life now that we have to look it, you know, straight in the face and try to improve them. Otherwise, it's going to affect our individual health as well, right? So I'd be really curious to know what are kind of some of the major issues that you see that people bring, you know, that people find in these difficult times. How has COVID and this confinement changed relationships, in your opinion? Well, I think it's the kind of thing where the quality of your relationships really shape the quality of your life, right? We're extremely social beings. We need people. We are, you know, we're wired to connect with one another. But this time has created an intense period of closeness for people. You know, if you're in confinement, you're with your family, you're with your partner, or you're with other people that you're not related to, that you happen to have to live with. And there's also, it's an extreme period of distance, right? And being separated from people.
I don't really love the term social distancing. I think about it as like a physical distancing. We can connect, other ways, but so there's been a lot of like everybody being on top of each other and missing other people that you can connect with. For my couples, it's been just a very illuminating time. I don't think that we're as used to spending as much time with each other as we are right now. And a lot of the outlets that we have outside of our home, be it work, very specifically, right? So a lot of us work outside the home and not used to having to work from home. And if we have a partner, we're living with a partner, then them all of a sudden being our new coworker, right? And creating new kind of understandings and agreements about how are we going to interact during the workday. Just because I'm here all day, does that mean that I'm here all day, right? I think all of us who have lived with another person, to a certain extent, we all know that alone together thing, right? Like when you're in the same room and you're like, okay, I'm reading a book or I'm focusing on this thing, like don't come near me or whatever. Like you have that invisible kind of wall where you're like, okay, not right now. But when it's all day long, kind of drawing those delineations of like when you can get in touch, when it's an important thing to talk about or not talk about.
So Ricky, just to add to that, because I have to, Ricky has started working in the hallway to really create space between us.
I can't answer your question right now, Bella.
Ricky's my partner, so my husband. So we're, everyone finds their own ways of creating this distance, but I completely agree with you. It's really necessary. Even if we are together, how do you create that space, right?
Yeah. And if it's something like that's literally physically like that, where it's like, I'm going to be distracted, I need to take myself into another area and not feeling bad about that, because then there's also this element of like, well, I'm here and you don't want to talk to me. And so it's like trying to come up with a way to really effectively communicate that boundary so that you can consciously connect. And having a conversation about how that works out for both of you is really important, because otherwise somebody's going to take it personally, right? And we'll definitely talk more about that as well. And also if you have kids, right? And you have to do the schoolwork and help them, manage that. You don't have the outside help coming in. And that's been like a big area for, communication and conflict and really like rethinking things. And also just not having the outlets, not being able to leave the house and not being able to just like get your energy from, not like get your energy from other people, but, go to the gym or anything else, go to a restaurant, meet friends, do the things that you're used to doing and coming back and seeing your partner and reporting that. It's just like a lot of the same. So creating that space for yourself when you don't really have the space to
one of the things I've learned from you a lot is that, if we don't create that space and you don't, kind of recharge ourselves with energies from the outside world, it's really difficult to create, the tension and the interest necessary for having a healthy sexuality and for creating that attraction, because it's about the, sort of not opposite attract, but, being attracted to something different from you. And if that different is always, 24 hours together, how do you, you start losing that space, right? So
you like start losing that like erotic space. That's definitely something that has been, and what I've been hearing about people in terms of sexuality has been either, people have been completely and totally shut down because of, the existential anxiety of a global pandemic isn't necessarily something that is a turn on for a lot of people. And then there have been people who have been getting really creative and being very experimental because they have more time at home. They're able to like really kind of focus on that. They don't have an hour commute in the morning, so maybe they have an extra hour that they can spend together, at the top or the bottom of the day, or top or bottom, if you're top or bottom. But it's like something that is definitely piqued curiosity for some people. But there is that need, and I'm happy that you brought that up, of like, how do you create novelty and how do you create intrigue and something interesting when you're spending time with the same person every single day? And there's something about this time that has forced us to become very creative. And that's something that I hope that we take with us into whatever happens, you know, whatever the emerging normal kind of ends up being, or if it ever kind of looks like what it did before, that creativity and really not taking each other, you know, for granted.
Yeah, and I think it's also, it goes even beyond relationships in that we ourselves have to create different spaces and be creative in really separating everything that we do in one confined space. You know, that's been really difficult for me, and I'm sure you know, if you want to comment, there are a lot of new people that joined after the introduction, so if you feel you know, if you feel the need to ask questions, you can type in, or later at the end we'll have more time for actual questions. You can unmute yourself and ask questions. But basically, how do you separate your workspace from your you know, relationship space, you know, from you know, spending time with myself, spending time with your kids, taking care of the house? It's all in one space, right? I know there's no easy answers. It's not like you're going to give us the, you know, the solution, but what have you been kind of recommending to people in terms of, you know, this separation and really creating space for ourselves and for our partners, or
Well,
within our relationships, I mean.
Yeah, what I think is happening is what happens in a lot of times in relationships that is a no-go in general, but like a no-go especially right now, which is, you know, we have all of these implicit agreements with our partners. So implicit agreement meaning like we think we understand what the other person needs, and we think we understand what we should be doing, and we think that they understand what we need. And these implicit agreements can lead to a lot of conflict. And when we're able to kind of do all of our, you know, have all of our manic defenses outside the house, like go to the gym, go meet people, go do this, go do that. Okay, it's annoying at home. All right, I'm just going to do this until I cool off, and then whatever, I'll come back home and we'll make up and it'll be fine. But now it's just like, okay, we're here. This isn't working. I can't go out. I have to look at this and figure out how to do it. So the key is to come up with some explicit agreements about, you know, time, space, energy, all of that stuff. And, you know, create boundaries around those things. And when I say boundaries, like, I know people are like, oh, you're going to make me like, get out, don't do this, I can't do that. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, create the space for conscious connection, so that when you're connecting with your partner, it's something that is conscious. It's just not taking things for granted. And this is especially important when everything's all under the same roof, right? So one of the things that I've really been encouraging people to do, which is not something that's necessarily very comfortable for a lot of people, is to sit down and be like, hey, let's figure out a way that we can both work in this whatever size home. Let's figure out a certain time of day, or like, you know, make a schedule with each other, and make a schedule for the household where you can be organized about it, and really don't, and follow it, and use it as something that is like an act of respect for the other person, right? Okay, at this time I need to be in the living room working out. I don't want you to come in and ask me what's for dinner, because I'm going to lose it, or whatever it is. So creating these really explicit agreements of like how you're going to use your time, and not, you know, and having the conversation in a way where the other person doesn't feel like they're getting yelled at because they're just trying to ask you what you want for dinner. Why are you jumping on me? You know, like there are all these things that can happen. So that's something that, but this is the thing, that communicating our needs is something that is very difficult. For some people, it is just the scariest thing to do. And for some people, this time in confinement or in quarantine has been the first time that we've really been able to sit and think about, like, well, what do I want? And like, how am I spending my days? And what do I want to be doing? And it's been very existentially, disruptive for a lot of people. And they're noticing that, you know, they're not necessarily like in control of how they want to, or have a good grasp on like what it is they want and how they want to be spending their days and their lives. So that's been something that's been really interesting. And so communicating it to themselves, communicating it to their partner, and then coming up with a way that they can live with one another.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think I've had some of the most, you know, both most difficult conversations as well as most, you know, enlightening conversations with my partner. Because like you said, we don't have anywhere to run away from it anymore, right? You know, things that are not working for us, you can't just like go and, you know, have a night out and, you know, forget about it. It's you're always facing it. So it's like now or never, we have to, you know, so I think for a lot of people, it's been a great time to reconnect and figure this out. But I think for a lot of people that haven't been able to create that space for communication, it's been difficult. And on a like a funny note, I've the way that we've dealt with this, like, don't talk to me, I'm busy right now. We've created this like pieces of paper where it's like green on one side and red on the other. If it's red, you can't talk to me. Basically, I'm at work. So.
Listen, whatever works. I mean, that is great. Where it's this kind of like that replaces the look. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
it's much better.
you're like,
yeah,
you know, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, but yeah, it's also really good to make each other laugh too, right? If there's something where it's like you're having, it's a tense moment and you know that you can't, like, you're not able to communicate it, or you have a lot of misunderstandings about it, to just kind of take a step back and just look at yourself as a team and just be like, just laugh at your own like need for whatever it is. Like, you know, if I'm like, okay, like I constantly want to ask this person this thing and they won't let me do it. And, you know, it's kind of like, you always ask me what I want for dinner, and like I hold up a little sign and it's like a frying pan or whatever, and it's like, okay, not now, or whatever it is, you know, like I mean, I think it's coming up with that, and also having a sense of humor, like these goofy little pieces of paper. Like, how many arguments have they gotten you guys out of, do you think, over quarantine?
Yeah. No, you're right that, you know, we need to stop taking ourselves so seriously, because as serious as the situation is, if we don't, you know, create these, you know, this space to be funny with each other, to have fun and to enjoy ourselves, then, you know, we're not doing a favor to anyone, right? And that brings me to a question that actually, I don't know how to pronounce them. I think Tanner, he's asking how to find true energy. I don't know if I understand the question correctly, but I think I have a similar question. Like, you know, how do you, you know, when you are always at home, it's really difficult to create this, to have fun, to be a fun person, and to share that energy with another person. Where do you bring that energy from? Where do you, you know, how do you recharge yourself? Is that, am I getting your question right, Tanner? Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay. Great question. And this is like,
thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I think, you know, this is the time, like I mentioned before, where imagination and just the resilience of human spirit is the most important thing. And it's the thing that's going to get us through. Visualization, physical movement is very good. You know, when I feel like I'm getting really stuck or I'm frustrated, I mean, I'm a little bit basic, but like I will drop down and do like 10 push-ups, you know, and just change the way that my body feels, put on some music and just allow myself to get swept up by the energy of that. Like if it's something very physical like that. And also visualization, you know, picturing yourself in a situation or picturing yourself somewhere where, you know, you would like to be, or thinking about yourself in an environment or in a situation that you can kind of aspire to get to, you know, when we're out of this. And the power of visualization is big. But I think that combined with like a little bit of a physical shaking up is super, super important. Yeah. And connecting with other people too, right? I mean, if you're feeling stuck and you're feeling really like in your thing, you know, call a friend, you know, FaceTime with somebody, connect. So like connect, move, and visualize. And if there's a certain kind of art form that inspires you, music, film, anything that will just arouse your senses, that is the way to really tap into your energy. Breathing is wonderful too. Breath work and that kind of stuff is also really good.
Yeah.
And that changes your physical state.
Yeah. That's one of the things we've been, most of the work, most of the practitioners that I've been inviting before, starting March, have been really focusing on these like energy, breathing, and, nutrition to movement. How do you, in a confined space, how do you use your own body to really regenerate that energy and get your health going? So if you guys are interested, I'll leave the contact later for you to participate in future webinars as well, and Shula's as well. But I think there are a lot of ways that we can create that energy and create that sort of positivity, right? So we can share each other. But obviously, when we are facing all these juggling, all this, parenting, or even if you're not a parent, being together the whole time, watching all the negative news, and it's obvious that we are going to have situations that are less than perfect, and conflict is going to be a part of our day-to-day life. What is the best way to navigate through conflict? You've helped me a lot on a personal level, but what can you recommend to people, how to avoid conflict if you can, and how to navigate through it in a more positive way, in a constructive way?
Well, I just want to start with, conflict is inevitable. If you're not having, not toxic conflict. I mean, not like, fighting in a way that's really unhealthy, but, it isn't unusual to, disagree or possibly, not see eye to eye on things, and to, get into a bit of conflict. And so it's going to happen. Avoiding conflict in a way, to kind of just keep things smooth is one thing, but like avoiding something that might become a bigger problem. Like, for instance, we can take the situation with like creating space for yourself or needing a little bit of privacy or whatever it is. If you keep on, shoving that aside, and you're the person who's not getting the space and the time and the energy that you need to refuel yourself, that can turn into a much larger conflict. So that kind of thing, I highly recommend taking care of quickly. I think that some couples that I've been working with over the last couple of months, they've been like, oh, I just thought that they would like figure out that I need them to help me with this. And I'm like, no. You need to kind of let them know. And the kind of conflict that can turn really toxic and unproductive is the conflict where, you are constantly fighting for what you need or what you want, but you're not actually asking the person for the thing, whether it's space or time or, more affection, more sensuality, more help with the kids' homework, all of that stuff. So that's the time that I suggest that you abide by the low negativity threshold theory, which is basically, couples are happier, or, people, you can also just say this with people, any relationships with people are better when you kind of let them know sooner rather than later that something is that something's bothering you. But the problem is conflict is, I rarely meet people who are like, I love conflict, unless they're people who just like to get into fights. But, if there are some issues, or there's some things that you want to bring up to somebody, it's really natural to be, a little bit conflict averse or afraid. All of us have seen conflict in different ways when we were growing up. And sometimes when we saw conflict, it was really, really scary, and we're afraid of that. And sometimes, and we have to just, recognize where we're coming from, but also know that, a life with another person that, you're choosing and you would like to have for a long time, and a healthy one, is one where you're communicating about things. So
I just insert, I think that's a really big issue. especially if you're, you know, if you have a relationship that, you know, you're very different. So like from different cultures, intercultural relationship, which is my case, for example, or, you know, if you have, if you don't normally communicate, or if you're from a culture like, you know, Brazilian culture is kind of conflict avoidant. So it's, I think what you said is really, really important, especially nowadays, that if you keep avoiding something that is bothering you, it's only going to come out in indirect ways and only make things worse. So it's really important to admit it to yourself that you need whatever it is that you need, and to communicate it clearly and, you know, not aggressively to the person. And that's something that I really learned from you a lot. You know, it's the importance, both sides, of really, you know, making it clear what's non-negotiable and what's really important. And sort of knowing, you know, I know that this is important for my partner, and in return, he knows what's important for me. And even if it's, you know, strange for us, because we assume, like you said, we assume we know what the other person wants, but we assume it in accordance to our own, you know, the way that we were brought up in our own, you know, mindset, right? But the other person might be thinking something completely different, you know, so it's really important to check in with each other always. So just to say that that's been really important, an important thing I've learned from you, and I've been using it a lot more now. So, yeah.
And I want to use the, and since, you know, a lot of what I wanted to talk about today was communication and conflict. Conflict is the first word on the ad for the webinar. But I think that, you know, I had this script that I shared with you, and that I share with so many people, and especially, you know, it's useful during this time. It's useful during any time. You can also use it with, you know, not only partners, but, you know, with family members, you know, friends, whatever. And when you're about to communicate with somebody about something that might feel a little scary or risky to you because of, I don't know, you don't know how they're going to react, you don't like conflict, you're afraid that they're going to have, you're asking for something that you really want, and you're afraid that they're going to say no, or they're going to make fun of you, or I don't know, anything that might make you hold your tongue. When you're having that feeling, there are 3 questions I want you to ask yourself. And the first question is, you know, what are you not saying to this person that you'd like to bring forward to them? Like, what are you not saying? And the second thing is, you know, what are you afraid might happen if you do bring this issue, concern, or need forward to them? And then what would you like to
What was the second? Sorry, say it again. I'm typing so that people can have it written. What's the second one?
I can, you want me to copy and paste it into the...
Oh, yeah, that would be great. I think that would be great.
Okay, so here are the 3 questions. And hold on 1 second. I was just sharing.
And maybe if you can, like, give an example, I think that would be good. Or if someone wants to volunteer and we can, I don't know. I think this has been really helpful for me. So I think it's something interesting that people are, Yep, we have them. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it? Okay. Yeah, so, you know, what are you not saying to this person that you'd like to bring forward to them, right? Like, so let's think of an example, right? Does anybody have an example of something you want to tell somebody that you have found hard?
You can unmute yourself or send it in a chat if you have an example. Anyone?
So
don't be afraid. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So sometimes, you know, we compromise between us. We know there are some few things, but we don't confront about those topics or those things, and we let it go. So what do you think? Should we confront and resolve those things immediately, or should we let it go? Because if we confront, that could be, I mean, the mood will be spoiled, the atmosphere would be spoiled, the relationship could be not good for a time being, you know. So what do you suggest about that?
Well, it really, thank you so much for your question. And yeah, that's a common fear that, you know, something's going to happen. The relationship is not going to be good for a while. You might hurt the other person. And I think it's, you know, something that if you think we can't really learn about each other and we can't really learn how to have a really healthy relationship if we're not saying certain things or asking for certain things. You know, it's whether or not it will be hurtful, you know, it depends on what the topic is or what the concern is, right? So if it's something that's like, okay, you know, I need more time to myself, right? And you're afraid that your partner is going to be upset about that because you feel like they're going to think that you're rejecting them or that they, you know, that you're not important to them, right? So that would be an example, like, you know, I need more time to myself. Like you're all over me, you're texting me all the time, you're calling me all the time, or you're just like right next to me all the time. You know, just, I think that if it's going to make you not happy in the relationship, thinking about, okay, how do I, and you want to stay in this relationship and you want the relationship to be healthy, like how do you talk through that? So I think that, you know, say that's the case, right? And you're afraid that that person is going to be upset. It's going to make the relationship not good. And, you know, you're afraid that they won't speak to you for a while and you're going to be heartbroken. So I have a script for like the possible way that you can have this conversation. And I'm going to share it right here. And it's like, hey, so-and-so, there are some things that I would like to share with you, but I'm afraid, shy, reluctant, whatever adjective you're feeling to share, because I fear that you might get really upset with me. Ideally, I'd like to be able to have a little bit more time to myself throughout the day, or, you know, have a little bit more me time. What I would like to share, ask, or discuss is how we can work on that together. Thank you for listening. If you're ready, you know, is there anything else you would like to respond to what I shared? That's very different than, can you please leave me alone? Like, I need space to myself. Like, you're all up in my business. You're texting me all the time. You're calling me all the time. I need space. You know, that's not going to probably work, right? But if you say to them, hey, I'm coming to you because there's something that I want to share with you, but I'm afraid because I'm afraid that you might get upset with me. So admitting that that's part of the whole scenario makes you kind of a little bit more vulnerable to them, and it shows them that you're speaking from a place of trying to come to an understanding rather than complain about how they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I've also noticed that, you know, sometimes when you share this the first time, it might be sort of, you know, a shock to the person, especially if you've been in a relationship for a long time and they didn't know that you have this need or this, you know, whatever, this space you need for yourself. But if you are kind of say it in a loving way and in a framework that you've presented, then, you know, they might get upset the first time, but then eventually, you know, after a couple of times of really reinforcing that in a carefully framed way, normally it leads to a much stronger connection afterwards, because then they feel comfortable to release or to open up to say something that's not working for them, because there's always things in a relationship that are not working for, you know, on that. And the more we, you know, try to wipe it under the carpet, I don't know if there's that expression in English, then, you know,
put it under the table. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. In Portuguese, it's like you wipe it under the carpet.
Under the carpet.
It will come up eventually, right? So, yeah.
But sometimes there are personalities which they don't want to confront. I mean, they are shy, or they are not so confident, maybe you can say. They don't want to raise this, you know, they just kept it in their inside. They don't want to get out of from their inside. I mean, there are personalities like maybe they are not confident, or they're not they don't want to raise this.
Yeah, and that's
because of unknown fears.
Yeah, of course. And we all have that. This is the thing that's so normal, and we all have them. And it's a thing that you know, it's very hard to change another person, and it's impossible. Only a person can change themselves. That's it. And I oftentimes tell people, you know, and if you're working with somebody who's shy, or if you're working with somebody, and I don't mean working like I work with people, but like if you're within a relationship with somebody who's like that, it's really important to, I think when you present them with a script like this, or when you present the conflict or the thing that you need in a way like this, it actually allows people to open up to you, because you are setting the stage. When you change yourself, the other person can change, right? The other person feels safer to do it. So unfortunately, sometimes one person has to be brave in order for the other person to follow, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think also, if you know what is going on with that person, and if you know what their personality is like, that's going to be helpful in how you proceed from that conversation. So if it takes them a little while longer, you know, just kind of doubling down on that and continuing to bring it up, and letting them know that you feel safe enough to say something. So maybe it'll inspire them to do it.
Yeah. Shula, so that kind of brings us to the second question, right? Like, what would be, what are you afraid that might happen, right?
Right.
And
what might happen?
Yeah,
I mean,
what would you like to, you know, to happen by saying it, right? So, but I think the first and foremost, like, we have to be comfortable with, to admit to ourselves something that's not working. I think that's sort of, yeah. If you come from that place, it's almost inevitable that you need to share it, right? Otherwise, you're living like against your own principles. I mean, I guess you have to draw a line where things are really important for you, and when they're, you know, maybe your whims or some things like that you can control. But
what's really important, I think, about this time, especially with the quarantine and having kind of this limited movement and all of that, is that there's so much that has been brought up that people are like, there's so much that they can't not say, you know, there's so much that has to be confronted. There's so many people within this situation become more themselves, more of the good side, more of the bad side. And, you know, you're just there kind of witnessing it with each other. And what's really important, what has happened is that, like, not only are people having a reckoning with themselves and what their needs are, and it's also like seeing your partner and their needs, and trying to really work it out, because you need to at this point. Like, it's really like a full global reset, and it's also a reset for relationships, I truly believe.
Yeah. Shula, and since we you know, we're, as we suspected, the conversation is very engaging and we're coming closer and closer to the, you know, to the end of it. There's still some time, but I really wanted to make sure we have time to talk about, you know, how do we, in all of this conflict and all of these, you know, difficulties that we're facing, how do we leave space for sexuality, and, you know, where is its place now and during the COVID times? And I think we have both partnered people as well as single people. You know, they've asked me if that would be, so I don't know if you have time to address a little bit of both, but it would be interesting to see, you know, where does sexuality stand, and what are some of the challenges that we're facing? I think we've talked about some of them, right? That we are having lack of this erotic space, or lack of ability to separate things. But if you can give us some insights, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with couples, it's been a lot about, you know, kind of, I think when you take care of more of this communication and make sure that you're not in all of these implicit agreements and kind of, you know, pissing each other off on a daily basis, you're more likely to be horny at the end of the day, or in the middle of the day, or whatever it is. So just, you know, coming up with a way to really create space for each other to be yourselves, right? So if your partner is asking for more time to do what they need to, or a little bit of space, give it to them, so that they can feel like, you know, that you can come together, right, at the end of the day, or at whatever point of the day that you want to be intimate. So give that person space, give yourself space, and so you can cross some space and be with each other. Get creative. you know, if there's any time to try new things, like this is it, because every single day is the same. So, you know, get inspired and think about, you know, fantasy is also, you know, a great way. Again, just like, you know, visualization and using that to kind of create energy within yourself. Like, think about it, how to use it within your couple, and what are things that you'd like to try, or how are things that you'd like to kind of feel in this moment. Role play, you know, all of those kind of things where it's, you can get out of just the stagnation of the day by day being the same. And that is something I think is extremely important. Imagination and creativity is going to be your foreplay all day, you know. That is going to be really, really important. And also, if you aren't feeling like extremely sexy or wanting to really, you know, partake, like, give yourself a break. But also, you know when you're just becoming a little bit avoidant or exhausted, or just allowing COVID to rob you of your libido. Like, this thing, you know, we need to be relationally resilient, and we need to be physically and spiritually resilient to this, and really respond to what this new emerging normal is like. And it's super important to really to apply that to your sexuality as well. So I always tell people, you know, learn how to rest, but never give up. You can also do that with your libido if it's not on fire, and don't judge yourself about that either. But if it is, you know, see what are some things that I might need to take care of myself, like holistically, right? Do I need to eat better? Do I need to exercise? Do I need to do whatever to make myself feel a little more, you know, juiced up for it all? And then as far as single people go, you know, if you're dating, you know, this is one of those things where technology is wonderful. Technology is a place where, you know, people are meeting for Zoom dates. They're, you know, having play dates on Zoom or FaceTime. And so it's an opportunity to also, like, meet people, you know, that way, right? Whether through apps or chatting, and, you know, we're kind of digitally set up for it. If you do meet somebody in person, just making sure that you're, you know, having physically distanced dates. If you don't know this person as a person that you necessarily want to be with, you know, kind of assessing the risk factors. I feel like I'm going back to, like, my sexuality and health days sometimes when I'm talking to people about dating and COVID, because it's kind of like, you know, harm reduction as far as, like, COVID goes, but it's so much more complex than you know, sexual health. But yeah, and if you do decide that you want to get together with another person, or be, like, physical with them, or have sex with them, like, you know, have all the conversations about risk assessment, like, know what the risks are, right? But you can still flirt and play and connect and do all of that stuff. I know plenty of people who've been doing that and have been having a good time.
Yeah, I guess again, it brings us to being creative in this new era that we're living in, and reinventing ourselves, reinventing what sexuality really means, and what, you know, staying connected to ourselves really means. So it's really a lot for us to process, but at the same time, I think it's a great time to be honest with ourselves also, and to look inside and see what's working, what's not working, what's working in this relationship, what do I want from relationships in general.
Yeah.
You know, what better time to do it now than, you know, when we're kind of in that rush, and you know, never have time to sit down and slow down. I think maybe this is the time to do that. So
yeah, and it's all about also getting into, like, sustainably, like, sensual kind of practices too. Like, if it's easy in this time to just, like, get on Instagram and be like, you know, or whatever, or, like, get sucked into the news or whatever it is. But, like, if you want to make your sexuality and sensuality, your relationship, connecting to your own body, connecting to your partner's body, dating, whatever it is, like, make that a priority for yourself. And like, technology is a great gift for us in this time, but it can also be a great distraction. So engage and use the tools as you will, but, like, if you're feeling lonely, or if you're feeling like you know, if you're feeling lonely in your house with your partner, instead of like, sometimes people will just go through social media and do that kind of thing. Put it down, go talk to your partner, connect, do, you know, do that kind of thing rather than, you know, just kind of not, you know, not investing in it at all. So, or if you're looking for a relationship as well, don't do online shopping and think that that's going to make you feel better. You know, try to connect with other people and you know, or yourself, your body, learn about your body.
Yeah, Shula. So I think since we're coming closer to the end, I wanted to leave some time for questions. But before, I wanted to really thank you for bringing so many different subjects related to the relationship to the table and giving us some very practical tools. I really recommend you guys, if you haven't done so, copy that those questions that Shula shared with you. They're really helpful. They might not seem like, you know, like much, but if you sort of do it frequently, ask these questions to yourself frequently, and do engage in these difficult conversations, it does pay off. I can give you my own example. It's been great. And for those of you that would like to get to know Shula's work even further, she does, you know, a lot of online. Most of your work is online, right? So it's like you're not really limited by the geographic space. Again, for those of you that joined later, I think a lot of you did. Shula is a relationship and sexuality coach. She's a therapist. She's also she has a master's in public health. So she works both, you know, the relationship and individual well-being. So she does a lot of, you know, individual sessions as well as group sessions. And I myself, I'm Bella Bablumian, and I'm the founder of, and actually Shula was the co-founder, and then we ended our relationship, but we continue on great terms. So it just shows how, you know, great she is in the communication. But anyways, the Imbody Wellness Institute is the one that brings these Wednesday webinars every night, and we always invite different therapists and holistic practitioners to give us tools and knowledge on how to go through these difficult times, how to look at ourselves, understand ourselves better, and really try to hold on a second here, try to really reconnect with who we are and what we want from kind of going further, because I think this is a unique time that we have time to really look inside and see what's not working for us. Like Shula was saying, you know, we can really use this time and improve our relationships and improve ourselves. So Shula, thank you very much. And now we have some room for some questions. If you guys want to type in, I know, let me look here. We have a couple of questions that were already asked. So yeah, I guess you've answered a lot of these questions. Raise your hand or unmute yourself, or just send a question if you have more of that. I think we've answered most of them. Anyone? Yeah. Thank you very much. Shula, do you have any kind of last words of wisdom to share with us? You know, I think this is the first time we are talking about, you know, relationships in these webinars. So, you know, it is a difficult time. What's kind of the last thing that you want to leave people with before we go off into this crazy world again?
I just want to thank you all for coming today, and it's really means a lot that, you know, you're interested in this topic and thinking about it. It's a really tough time, and I just want to commend everybody, you know, on the planet who has been going through this, and it's been something that, you know, will definitely shape a lot of, you know, how we continue, you know, interacting with each other. And I think that it's, you know, if we can learn something within this time, it's to, you know, be kind to ourselves, be kind to one another, and really, you know, pursue the kind of lives and relationships we really long for. I think another thing I wanted to mention, but I didn't, is that, you know, if other people aren't, you know, doing well, or if they're, you know, if they're acting in a way that's, you know, leave room for people to be reacting to COVID-19. There is a lot of existential anxiety that comes with this. So if somebody's not acting their best, you know, just, you know, check in with them and see how they're doing. And then also with yourself too, if you're not feeling like you have energy, you know, if you feel like you are not feeling positive all the time, it's okay, you know, and really, like, not only nurture the relationships around you, but nurture your relationship with yourself. You know, use this time to heal yourself and heal your relationships. And if you have any questions, you know, you can reach out to me. I have a website, shulamelamed.com, and Bella, I think you're going to share some of that stuff. And yeah, I just commend you all for coming out and being curious about relationships, and I wish you a lot of luck in yours.
Yeah, I will share this recording as well as your contact information in the group that I shared with you on Facebook. So if you guys can join, let me send those again. And that way you can also get, I will, if Shula doesn't mind, Shula, if you don't mind, I'll share your questions
Sure.
in that group so that people who have participated in the webinar can have, you know, have access to it.
Yeah, and also on my website, if you go to the products page, I have a bunch of free downloads there that are basically questions that you can ask yourself about relationships, the type of relationships that you want to have. You can download this sheet as well. So if you want any extra kind of materials, you can go there.
Cool. Shula, we do have a question that I missed. Is it okay if I ask you?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a question that says, you know, I basically saying that, you know, if a person is positive all the time, is that a bad thing? Like the person who's asking the question, he says that he's trying to be positive. Is that bad to be always positive? Sort of. Do I understand your question right, Erin? I think so. So.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Trying to be positive all the time. Well, you know, it's okay to not feel positive all the time. It's sometimes you have to go into whatever feeling you're feeling. I think there are times where it's like, you know, you fake it till you make it, fake it till you believe it. But I think that imposing that necessity to always be happy is not realistic. You have to think, like, is this positivity making me miserable right now? Which I know that sounds like a really strange statement, but you know, are there things that you're not allowing yourself to feel, right? I think it's great to have a positive attitude where you're like, okay, this is, you know, I'm going to work on this and this is going to work. You know, it's very important. Yeah. Angeli, you said, you know, positive is good, just be realistic, right? So like if there's like something actually comes across your way, like where you're having a feeling where you're not feeling so positive, don't be afraid of that. There's this term toxic positivity that I just learned, and it's like when somebody's just like, everything's great all the time, and it's not allowing you to be human, right? So we're not always just positive. We have a lot of different facets. So if you find that the positivity is making you feel worse than better, then maybe stepping back and being like, okay, what am I not allowing myself to feel right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I understand.
Okay.
Yeah. Guys, so yeah, Shula, thank you very much. It's a really, again, I think it's one of the probably one of the most difficult times in our lifetime that we'll be, you know, navigating through all of these difficult questions. And but you know, as we're in this together, let's really try to see the bright side, to reconnect with our partners or reconnect with ourselves, to see what we want from our relationships, and you know, be honest with ourselves, to really create also communication with ourselves and with those around us. Because I think all of these changes that we're seeing, they really start with us, right? And we are in part responsible for what's going to happen after this. So if we create a positive environment, you know, here in our relationships, then we can really be the change makers. I think that's really the view that I have for these webinars. So I think that really bringing this knowledge, this wisdom is really about reconstructing ourselves so they can reconstruct our world. So I really appreciate your really beautiful perspective on relationships, bringing all this knowledge and giving us practical tools. And thank you guys very much for participating and being very active and asking questions. And I really invite you to visit, you know, Shula's page, you know, see if you have questions for her, and continue watching us on Wednesday nights. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Have a great night. Take care of each other and
You
yourself.
too. Thanks, Shula. Bye.